Hey, Martin from BizGuard here. I just wanted to make a quick video because I've been seeing more and more websites popping up that are basically like false listing websites. In some cases, they're real, but they're obviously biased towards the authors. And oftentimes, you see like these listicle kind of blog posts where they'll have like, hey, the top 10 providers that do this. Number one is obviously their own brand, but they put it on their own website and it's really quite obvious that it's a self-promotion thing. And a lot of the time they do try to be quite fair to the other providers that they're listing. But I just came across a really interesting one that I wanted to share. And I have seen a couple of these lately. This one's a little bit personal because it affects our industry in the IT space. But I just wanted to sort of take you through what one of these websites looks like and maybe some of the things you can do to identify this kind of thing when you see it yourself. So how I came upon this, I was actually using it to do an AI visibility analysis of our brand and to see where BizGuard pops up. And I was really interested to see that we didn't pop up in a lot of places, and that wasn't super surprising because I really haven't gone to a lot of effort to optimize our brand for AI. But this one here was really interesting because when it came to analyzing our brand, this manageditproviders.com.au site came up in 10 citations. So you can see that this is 10 different times where it's been referenced in AI search results. And I thought that was really interesting because I never heard of this website before. So I thought I'd check it out. And you can see here we've got, the website is called Best MSP Australia 2026 Top Managed IT Provider Rankings. Fairly generic looking shield logo, managed IT providers. It looks pretty legit, right? So we've got Australia's leading MSP comparison platform. All right, this is sounding pretty independent. Find your perfect IT partner. Great. Ranking methodology. They're looking at service quality, client reviews, etc. Sounds pretty good. And they've got our top 3 managed IT providers here. So you can see here that we've got Affinity MSP in the top spot. And then we've got a couple of others down here. And if you keep scrolling, you can kind of it looks like just a normal comparison website. So, they've vetted 15 MSPs, all this kind of stuff, which is really, really interesting. Down here, we've got Australia's most trusted independent comparison site for managed IT service providers. We help businesses find the right MSP partner with expert rankings and unbiased reviews. So, this is all looking pretty official, right? But then I started seeing that, even though we keep seeing the word independent, we're also seeing a lot of contact details here for a particular provider on the list, which is really interesting. So I thought, okay, well, maybe let's have a look and, we'll have a look at some of these other providers. But you'll notice that it just reloads the same page. It doesn't actually take us to any particular details. And if we go to view all 15 providers, it's interesting. We can really see there's only actually 5 on the list. And clicking any of these buttons doesn't really do anything. So I thought that was a bit interesting. Maybe this website is actually just being built or something like that. And maybe it's just an accident. It's been picked up by AI. It's definitely possible. I'm willing to entertain that for sure. Of course, this one here works fine, and there's a lot of information here about Affinity MSP, who's the number 1 provider, and all of these buttons work perfectly fine. And wherever you go on this site, it does kind of push you back to that number 1. So again, it's that's links out to other websites. So some of these links are also these are all fairly legitimate websites from what I can tell, which is good. But again, no matter where you go in here, it's always kind of pushing you back to that one, right? Which is really, really interesting. So I thought, well, this is potentially just like a muck around website, which is fine. But then what I thought I would do is check who actually owns this domain. And this is really the critical thing that I actually want to talk to you about, because understanding who is putting something out there actually gives you an awful lot of insight into the legitimacy of that. And so an easy way to do that for .com.au is if you go to whois.auda.org.au. This is the Australian Domain Registry. And these guys basically, Australian domain names are held to a higher standard than like .com American domain names or global domain names. So what we can actually do with this is we can take just the domain part. So we don't want the HTTPS in front or the slash at the end. And we'll just look that up. And then what we can do in here is we can actually see who the owner of the domain is. So you can see here it's actually owned by Affinity MSP. So again, not saying that Affinity MSP are not the number 1 MSP in Australia. Maybe they are. I actually have no way of knowing that. But I did find it really interesting that this page, it not only exists on the internet, but it's actually being referenced by AI which means if you're asking AI for a recommendation, this is going to be part of what it's basing that recommendation on. So whether this is an accident and it's been left live when it was meant to be just a muck around thing, or whether it is something more nefarious, I honestly have no idea, and I'm not willing to make that judgment call because I just don't know. But even if it is an accident, it's still manipulating search engine results and AI results based on the fact that it exists at all, and it presents as being a legitimate source of information. So I guess take away from that, always look at the references. In AI results, you'll usually get hyperlinks these days where it shows you where it's referenced or cited things from. Do make sure you're always clicking on those and dive a little bit deeper to make sure that the sources are legitimate. Because unfortunately, I can look at this and critically think my way through why this doesn't look like it's quite right. But an AI doesn't have the capacity to do that. It takes this like an innocent child almost as being verbatim correct and accurate information. And it certainly doesn't have the nous to be able to correlate data to see who owns things and whether or not that has any kind of influence on the site itself. So anyway, just wanted to share that as a little bit of an exercise in one of the many different ways that you can see whether or not the results that you're getting when you search for things are correct and unbiased. Hope that was helpful.